My name is Thomas Ray. I was admitted to St. Dymphna's Recovery Center on April 3, 2024. At least, I think that's when it happened. My memory isn't whole anymore. Things come in flashes, like scenes spliced out of order in a broken film reel. But I know what they did. And I need someone, anyone, to believe me. Please read this. Please don't go there. I was 35. Just a regular guy. No criminal record. Some mild depression after my mother died, sure. Nothing that warranted what they did to me. When I first walked through the gates of St. Dymphna's, it didn't look like a hospital. It was an old red brick structure nestled in a forest in upstate New York, with crooked wings and iron bars on the windows, like an asylum frozen in time. The place smelled like wet stone and antiseptic. The air was too quiet, like the trees themselves were holding their breath. Dr. Calder greeted me on the first day. Tall, neat beard, white coat pressed to perfection. His smile was empty, like he'd practiced it 1,000 times but never meant it once. "You've made the right choice, Thomas," he said. "You'll feel better soon. We're trying something new. Something revolutionary." That was the first time I heard the word program. They didn't call it therapy or treatment. Just the program. At first, it was routine. Group sessions. Journaling. Mild sedatives at night. But even then, something felt off. The staff moved like machines, too synchronized, too silent. The patients looked dimmed, like someone had drawn a veil across their eyes. No one made real eye contact. Then the pills changed. They started giving us red capsules. They didn't explain what was in them. We weren't allowed to refuse. If you pushed back, you'd be taken to Quiet Room B. God help me, I saw what happened in Quiet Room B. I'll get to that. The red pills made me forget things. I'd lose whole hours. I'd wake up in my bed with blood under my fingernails, bruises on my arms, surgical scars on my lower back I know weren't there before. When I asked about them, the nurses smiled and said I must have scratched myself. One of them, Nurse Lyle, whispered to me, "Don't ask." Not out loud. By the third week, the dreams started. Only they weren't dreams. Not really. I'd find myself strapped to a cold metal table in a white room, bright lights glaring down. Machines buzzed and clicked. Figures stood over me, masked, wearing lead aprons. I could feel something moving inside me, tugging, scraping. And every time I screamed, they'd increase the dose. Then I'd wake up, and my sheets would be wet with sweat and my hospital gown would be inside out. They were doing something to us in our sleep. Cutting. Implanting. Testing reactions. We weren't patients. We were test subjects. Some of the others started disappearing. One girl, Marla, had a nervous tic, always twirling her fingers. One morning, she wasn't in the breakfast line. Her bed was stripped bare. Her name was gone from the clipboard. When I asked where she went, they looked at me like I was crazy. "There's no one named Marla here," Dr. Calder said. But I remember her. I remember her. I stopped taking the pills. Pretended to swallow them, but spat them out in the toilet. That's when things became clear. The haze lifted, and I realized how deep in we all were. I started exploring at night. Carefully. Quietly. The west wing was locked, chained from the outside. I stole a keycard from a distracted orderly. Behind those doors was a different hospital entirely. Cages. Yes, cages. Not rooms. I saw patients inside, stripped naked, twitching like puppets, hooked up to machines that dripped glowing blue fluid into their veins. They weren't awake. They weren't asleep either. They were stuck in some liminal state, their eyes rolling, mouths murmuring words I couldn't understand. One room had a giant chart on the wall, tracking reactions. Days since dose. Level of neurological degradation. Signs of soul displacement. That's when I knew this wasn't about medication. They weren't treating mental illness. They were trying to extract something from us. The human soul. That sounds insane, I know. I sound insane. But I saw the monitors. I saw my own name on a clipboard under the words, Phase 2, subject shows signs of resonance. Initiate split protocol. They were using our minds as petri dishes. Tearing open the barrier between body and consciousness. Some of us broke. Others, something came in. I think that's what happened to Lyle. Her eyes started glowing faintly blue under the fluorescent lights. She didn't blink anymore. She just stared. I don't have much time left, and I'll tell you how I escaped soon. But I need you to know this, they are expanding the program. I found emails printed out in Dr. Calder's office. New grants, new facilities. They call it therapeutic resonance therapy. It's going national. You could walk into your local clinic and never walk out whole again. And no one will ever believe what really happened to you. I barely made it out. I had to fake a seizure, bite through my own tongue to get sent to the ER unit. Slipped out during the transport. I've been hiding ever since. My spine still hurts where they drilled into me. Sometimes I hear whispers when I close my eyes. Other voices using my mouth when I dream. If you see the word St. Dymphna's Behavioral Health on a brochure, burn it. If your doctor recommends alternative mood elevation, run. And if you feel a buzzing in your skull at night, like something's trying to get out, it's already too late. I'm Thomas Ray. They called it a cure. It was a doorway. I left off at the cages, didn't I? The blue fluid, the murmuring patients, the ones caught between waking and whatever came next. That was just the surface. You have to understand, the experiments weren't just surgical or chemical. They were ritualistic. Scientific, yes, with graphs and electrodes, but also spiritual. A perverse merging of medicine and mysticism. And somehow, in their minds, it all made sense. The further I crept into the forbidden areas of the hospital, the more the walls started to change. Not physically, no, they still looked like cement, but there were symbols etched under the paint. Faint carvings that glimmered when exposed to UV. Spirals. Eyes. Words written in languages I couldn't recognize, but which made my stomach twist when I looked at them too long. There was a door I was never meant to find. Behind the hydrotherapy wing, concealed behind a false panel. I only noticed it because of the smell, ozone, burnt hair, and something sweeter, like rotting fruit. That room wasn't on any blueprint. It had no number. Inside was a lab. Not like the sterile white ones upstairs. This one looked abandoned, but still humming with power. The lights flickered red. The floor was lined with wires and electrodes that branched like veins. And in the center, the chair. It looked like a dentist's chair, except it had a full head cage, with pins at every contact point. The armrests had straps thick enough to restrain a bear. A machine beside it blinked and chirped, labeled NeuroExtract version 5.3. There were jars, Real glass jars, on the shelf. Inside them floated what looked like clusters of light, or maybe gas, suspended in liquid. The label read, Residual consciousness samples, do not expose to open air. God help me, I touched one. Just for a second. The glass was warm. And for a split second, I felt something enter me. A surge of otherness, as if I was watching myself from a distance. I jerked away and fell backwards, vomiting. That night, I didn't sleep. Every time I blinked, I saw faces. Familiar faces, but twisted. My mother with no eyes, my ex-girlfriend mouthing words in reverse. And behind them, a white hallway stretching into infinity. I later learned that hallway was part of what they called the deep structure. Calder's research notes, stolen from a cabinet during shift change, outlined the phases of the experiment. Phase I, chemical erosion. Introduce compliance compounds via red capsules. Suppress critical thinking. Target the prefrontal cortex to reduce resistance to suggestion. Phase II. Induced trauma regression. Simulate extreme stress scenarios to fracture ego identity. Frequent sedation to interrupt emotional processing. Night terrors are considered markers of responsiveness. Phase III, neural displacement extraction, NDE, subject is exposed to prolonged exposure in the neuroextract chair. Low-frequency sound induces soul resonance, separating core consciousness from the body. Residual essence is collected for further study. Phase IV. Insertion trials. Vacated subjects are implanted with harvested consciousness samples from previous extractions. The goal, determine compatibility and cross-identity stability. You see, they weren't healing us. They were swapping souls. Trying to prove that identity isn't bound to the body. That you can lift a person's selfhood like a circuit from a board, and slot in something new. Something from elsewhere. Something better. I saw a man named Arlo go through it. He was a patient like me. Quiet, reserved, kept to himself. One night, I passed the surgical bay and saw him on the chair. No one noticed me watching from the vent shaft. The machine hummed. The lights around his skull pulsed in time with some deep, guttural rhythm, like chanting. But no one was speaking. Suddenly he began screaming, not in pain, but like he was being erased. Like he realized he was slipping away, cell by cell. Then he went silent. His head slumped. The machine went quiet. They kept him in a bed for 3 days after. When he woke, he smiled at me in the hallway. Only it wasn't his smile. It was too wide. Too perfect. He spoke differently, with a clipped accent. He no longer answered to Arlo. When I called his name, he just said, "That vessel is no longer in use." One night, he followed me to my room. Stood outside the door for hours. Just standing. Breathing. I started noticing more like him, formerly broken people who now moved with eerie precision. They didn't blink often. They didn't cry or laugh. When they did, it was always delayed, as if they were mimicking human behavior. I believe those were the ones who passed phase 4. The rest, the ones who didn't take to the insertion, well, they were stored somewhere else. I found them too. A morgue, cold and wet, where the failed bodies were stacked. Not cremated. Not buried. Just stored. Some of them were still twitching. I'm writing this from a basement in Newark. Every day I feel them getting closer. I don't know how long I have before they find me. I left a thumb drive in a post office locker with all the files I copied, recordings, diagrams, names. But the truth is, I don't know if I'm me anymore. Sometimes, I say things I don't mean to say. I write in a language I don't know. I wake up standing in corners, watching myself sleep. If they find this letter, they'll say I was schizophrenic. A danger to myself. Delusional. But I was there. I felt them pull something out of me. I don't think they ever put it back. I don't remember when I stopped running. I know I left the hospital. I know my feet bled and I slept in alleyways. I know I saw the city again, the sound of traffic overwhelming after so many weeks of silence and synthetic humming. But now I'm not sure what's real anymore. I've been having blackouts again. Long ones. I'll come to standing in front of mirrors I don't own. Clocks will jump hours. My voice will sound different, thicker, like my throat is lined with syrup. The worst part? I'm starting to understand things I shouldn't. Languages I never studied. Symbols I saw back at St. Dymphna's, the spirals and the eyes, I know what they mean now. And I don't know how. Every day I try to anchor myself, but it's like the tether is fraying. Like I'm not the one in control anymore. My hands move on their own. My thoughts have an echo. I'll think I'm hungry, and then hear a second voice inside say, then eat something that bleeds. I burned the papers. All the notes. I was scared someone would find them. Then I was scared I would. I don't trust myself anymore. I've started locking the door from the outside when I sleep, just in case. The other night, I woke up to find myself carving into the wall. Just carving, over and over, using a rusted key I'd never seen before. That's what it said. I looked it up. Old Norse, apparently. It means, hell within. I've been dreaming of the chair again. Only this time, I'm not in it, I'm standing over it, wearing the white coat. I watch myself scream, struggle. I pull the lever. I smile. I smile. And when I wake up, my fingernails are black, and I can hear whispers in the pipes. They call me by different names. Not Thomas. Not anymore. One of them calls me Hollow Vessel. Another says He Who Returned. Last week, I saw myself on television. Not me. But someone who looked exactly like me, same face, same voice, talking on some late-night public access show about holistic psychiatric breakthroughs. He said the words resonant therapy and conscious transfer pilot program. The host clapped. The audience smiled. And I knew then, I didn't escape. I was released. That's what St. Dymphna's does when the process finishes. They let you walk free. A perfect model of stability. A walking, talking mask. But something else is inside. I don't know if I was the prototype or a failed iteration. Maybe the real Thomas is still screaming in that chair, somewhere in the deep structure, reliving the moment of extraction over and over. Maybe I'm just the echo. Today, I found a needle in my bag. I don't know how it got there. There's a label on it in the same writing from the hospital. It says, realignment dose. For subject reintegration. And the worst part? I want to use it. God help me, I feel like something inside me wants to come home. Like it's been waiting. I can feel it in my bones. It stirs when I sleep. It hums beneath my teeth. It smiles when I cry. I think I'm going back. Not because I want to. Because it's calling me. And because, maybe I never left. Scrawled below in uneven handwriting, if you're reading this, if any of this makes sense to you, don't look in the mirror too long. If it smiles before you do, it's already inside.